Hollow Street was always full of noise car horns, children playing football, and traders shouting prices. But among all the noise, one place brought calm: Uncle Jethro's barbershop. Everyone trusted Uncle Jethro. He had been cutting hair for decades, from the days boys wore spiky styles to the times when girls curled their hair for Christmas parties. His clippers were old and loud, and if you moved too much, they might pinch your skin. But no one complained, because Uncle Jethro was more than a barber. He cared for every boy that sat in his chair. After trimming your hair, he rubbed shea butter on your scalp, prayed for you, and reminded you to do well in school. If a boy came from a poor family, he never charged. He would just smile and say, "Your head is worth more than your pocket." But one season, Uncle Jethro fell ill. His cough grew worse, and soon the shop was closed. Boys in Hollow Street began walking around with messy hair, waiting for the day the old barber would return. Then suddenly a new shop appeared. At the far end of Hollow Street, across from the blacksmith's workshop, a sleek building stood where nothing had been before. On its glass door was a shining sign: Smooth Crown Cuts. The letters glowed at night, and the shop looked like something brought from the city. Inside, the walls were painted dark gray, the floor tiles shone like water, and leather chairs spun smoothly in front of a giant mirror that stretched across the wall. The man who ran the place called himself Kareem. He was slim, dark-skinned, with a neatly trimmed beard. On his neck hung a gold chain with a razor blade pendant. He always wore gloves and never wasted words. Every morning at 9, he opened his shop. By 6 in the evening, he closed it. No smiles. No greetings. Just silence and speed. At first, the younger boys tried him. They came out with stylish haircuts and boasted, "Forget Uncle Jethro. Kareem will make you look like a superstar." Soon, everyone was curious. Even boys who swore they would stay loyal to Uncle Jethro began sneaking to Smooth Crown Cuts. It wasn't long before Kareem became the talk of Hollow Street. Jonah was 12, tall for his age, and loved to play football barefoot with his friends on Hollow Street. His hair had grown wild since Uncle Jethro's sickness, and Mama Sod, his mother, finally grew tired of it. "Jonah, tomorrow you will not step outside until your hair is cut," she said firmly. "But Mama." "No but. You look like a goat," she snapped, tying her wrapper tighter. "Go to that new shop. Smooth Crown, or whatever they call it." Jonah frowned. He didn't like Kareem's shop. The place looked too cold, too clean. Still, he obeyed. The next afternoon, Jonah pushed the glass door open. A soft chime rang above his head. Inside, the air smelled sharp, like a mixture of aftershave and metal. Kareem stood by the counter, wearing his gloves, his gold chain gleaming. "Sit," Kareem said, pointing to a chair. His voice was deep, flat, without warmth. Jonah sat. The leather seat squeaked under him. Kareem draped a black cape over Jonah's shoulders, then switched on the clippers. The buzzing filled Jonah's ears, louder than Uncle Jethro's old machine, sharper, almost like angry bees. As Kareem worked, Jonah noticed something strange. The mirror in front of him didn't just reflect his face. The corners of the glass seemed to stretch deeper, like there was another room behind it. For a moment, Jonah thought he saw shadows moving there, long, thin shapes bending and twitching. He blinked. The shadows vanished. Kareem said nothing, only moved the clippers quickly, almost too quickly. When he finished, Jonah looked in the mirror. His haircut was perfect, smoother than anything Uncle Jethro ever did. He almost smiled. But when Kareem removed the cape, Jonah's eyes caught the floor. There was hair everywhere, not just his, but other strands, long and short, twisted together. Some clumps looked damp, as if wet with something darker than water. Jonah stepped back, uneasy. "How much?" he asked. Kareem shook his head. "First cut free." Jonah hurried out, his chest tight. For the rest of the day, he tried to ignore the feeling that something had followed him out of the shop. 3 days after the haircut, Mama Sod gasped while oiling Jonah's hair. "Jonah, what is this?" He touched his head where her hand paused. Right at the center of his scalp was a round bald patch, smooth and shining like glass. "Mama, I don't know," Jonah stammered. Mama Sod frowned deeply. "Did you scratch your head?" "Burn it." "No. It just came." Her face hardened. At night, he dreamed of buzzing sounds and mirrors that stretched like rivers. Sometimes he woke up sweating, certain that someone was standing in the corner of his room. The next Sunday, Mama Sod dragged him to church. The service was loud, with drums beating and voices rising in song. But when the pastor laid hands on Jonah's head, something unusual happened. The boy fell to the ground, trembling. His teeth chattered, and a strange cry rose from his throat. Not his voice, but something deeper, rougher, like it came from a faraway place. The church grew silent. The pastor's eyes narrowed. This child has been touched by unclean hands. He lifted his voice in prayer, rebuking the spirit. Jonah shook harder, until at last he slumped, breathing heavily. When the service ended, Mama Sod wept into her wrapper. She begged the pastor to visit Smooth Crown Cuts. But the pastor only said, "Be watchful. Darkness often hides behind beauty." From that day, Jonah was forbidden to return to Kareem's shop. That evening, Mama Sod sat Jonah down in their small parlor. "When I was a girl, there was a tailor who sewed free clothes for children. But later, people found out he was taking things from them. Things no tailor should take. That Kareem is the same." Jonah shivered. He remembered the mirror at Smooth Crown Cuts, the way it looked too deep, too alive. He wanted to tell Mama, but the words stuck in his throat. Outside, Hollow Street was buzzing as usual. Children ran with footballs, hawkers shouted about roasted corn, and traders locked their shops for the night. But one place stayed glowing: Kareem's barbershop. The lights inside shone bright white, even when most other shops had gone dark. From their window, Jonah stared at it. He thought he saw figures moving inside, though the door was locked and Kareem was nowhere around. 2 weeks later, a whisper spread through Hollow Street. Uncle Jethro was back. He walked slowly now, his hair fully gray, his cough softer but still there. His shop was open again, though the wooden sign outside hung crooked. Children cheered when they saw him. "Uncle Jethro," they cried. He smiled weakly. "Ah, my boys. Sit. Let me fix those heads." But fewer boys came than before. Many still preferred Smooth Crown Cuts, with its glowing sign and fancy styles. When Uncle Jethro saw Jonah, his face grew serious. "Boy," he said, "you went to Kareem, didn't you?" Jonah's head dropped. "Yes, Uncle." Uncle Jethro sighed and touched Jonah's scalp gently. His fingers paused over the bald spot. For a moment, his eyes filled with worry. "That man is not one of us," he murmured. "He does not cut hair for beauty. He cuts for something else." "What do you mean, Uncle?" Jonah asked. Uncle Jethro did not answer directly. He only whispered, "Be careful, Jonah. Some barbers sharpen their blades not for hair, but for souls." Rumors began to fly around Hollow Street. Some boys who had gone to Smooth Crown Cuts stopped playing football. They became quiet, pale, and sometimes their heads shone with the same strange bald patches as Jonah's. One boy, Musa, even fainted in class. When he woke up, he muttered strange words no one understood. Jonah noticed something else. Every evening, Kareem closed his shop early, but people swore they saw him later at Hillcrest Lodge, the old abandoned house at the edge of town. Its windows were broken, its roof sagged, and everyone said it was haunted. One night, while Jonah and his friend Dapo were buying akra from Mama Folake, they saw Kareem walk past. He was carrying a black bag. His eyes didn't look left or right. He went straight toward the road that led to the lodge. "Did you see that?" Dapo whispered. Jonah nodded, his chest tight. "We need to know what he's doing there." The next Friday, when the moon was high, Jonah and Dapo followed the narrow path toward Hillcrest Lodge. Through a crack in the wooden wall, Jonah peeked inside. Kareem stood in the center of the room, his gold chain shining in the dim light. On the floor were piles of hair. Not just hair. Jonah recognized Musa's school cap lying there, and beside it, strands of hair he swore belonged to his classmates. Kareem raised his hands. His voice echoed in a language Jonah had never heard. The mirrors pulsed, and the shadows pressed harder, as if trying to break through. Dapo grabbed Jonah's arm. "We need to go. Now!" But before they could move, the wooden floor creaked. Kareem's head snapped toward their hiding place. "Who is there?" His voice thundered. Jonah's heart slammed in his chest. Jonah and Dapo bolted from the crack in the wall, their slippers slapping against the dirt. The night air felt colder, heavier, as if the trees themselves were closing in. Behind them, Kareem's voice roared. "Stop there." The boys didn't look back. They tore through the tall grass, stumbling and gasping. Jonah's chest burned, but he didn't dare slow down. Then came the sound, the sharp buzzing of clippers. It wasn't coming from Kareem's shop. It was right behind them, louder, closer, as if floating through the air. Dapo yelped. "Jonah, it's following us." Jonah risked a glance over his shoulder. His blood ran cold. A pair of clippers, glowing, humming, zipped through the darkness like a flying insect chasing them. Its blades snapped open and shut, hungry. "Run!" Jonah shouted. They darted into a narrow alley, leaping over broken wood and trash. The buzzing grew louder, echoing off the walls. Just as the clippers swooped low, Jonah kicked an old tin can. It clattered loudly, and for a moment, the thing swerved and hit the wall with a spark. The boys didn't wait. They dashed into Hollow Street, where the glow of streetlights finally swallowed the shadows. When they reached Jonah's house, Mama Saad was outside waiting, worry on her face. "Where have you two been?" she demanded. But when she saw Jonah's pale face and Dapo trembling, her anger melted into fear. "What happened?" Jonah opened his mouth, but no words came. Only a sob escaped. Mama Saad pulled them close. She whispered, "Tomorrow we are going to the church again. This is deeper than I thought." The next morning, Hollow Street Church was packed. Mama Saad had told the pastor everything. Jonah sat in the front row, clutching his knees. When the pastor lifted his voice in prayer, something strange happened again. Jonah felt heat on his head, not from the sun, but from within. The bald spot burned, and he cried out. The pastor touched him and declared, "This child has been marked, but the mark shall not stand." The congregation shouted amen. Jonah felt as if fire raced through his veins. He saw, just for a second, Kareem's face in his mind, twisted, angry, watching through a mirror. Then the vision shattered like glass. When the prayer ended, Jonah slumped, weak but lighter. The pastor wiped sweat from his brow. "There is a battle on this street. We must be ready." That night, Hollow Street was not its usual self. No laughter, no hawkers, no boys playing football. The whole street was quiet, waiting. The pastor, dressed in a simple white robe, Mama Saad walked beside him, holding Jonah tightly. Dapo followed too, his face pale but determined. They walked in silence until the broken roof of Hillcrest Lodge appeared against the moonlight. A red glow pulsed faintly from its windows. "Here we stand," the pastor said. "No fear. Light will swallow darkness." The group entered. Inside, the mirrors shone brighter than before. Shadows with twisted arms pressed against the glass, trying to break free. And there, in the middle, was Kareem. His gold chain gleamed. His eyes burned red. "You should not have come," he hissed. "This street belongs to me now." The pastor raised his Bible. "Not while God lives." Kareem lifted his hands, and the mirrors trembled. The buzzing of clippers filled the air, sharper, louder, until the whole room shook. One by one, mirrors cracked, spilling black smoke that twisted into the shapes of men without faces. The church members began to sing. Their voices rose, shaky at first, then stronger. Jonah clutched his head. The bald spot burned again, like fire under his skin. Suddenly, he understood. Kareem's mark was also Kareem's weakness. "Pastor," Jonah shouted. "Pray here." He pointed to his head. The pastor placed his hand firmly on Jonah's scalp. "In the name above every name, I break this chain." A blast of light shot from Jonah's head, striking the mirrors. One shattered, then another, then all at once, a storm of glass and smoke. The faceless shadows screamed and dissolved into nothing. Kareem staggered back, clutching his chain. "No, this is my power." But the pastor thundered, "Your reign ends tonight." He raised his Bible high, and with one last shout from the congregation, a wave of light filled the room. Kareem's scream echoed as his body dissolved into dust, leaving only the gold chain behind, clattering to the floor. When it was over, silence filled Hillcrest Lodge. The mirrors were gone, only broken frames remained. The glow faded, and the buzzing of clippers died forever. Jonah stood still, breathing hard. The burning in his head vanished. He touched the bald spot. It was gone. His hair felt normal again. Mama Saad hugged him tightly, tears rolling down her cheeks. "It is finished," she whispered. The pastor picked up the gold chain, wrapped it in white cloth, and said, "This will be buried far away from here. No evil shall rise again on Hollow Street." The group left the lodge together. As they stepped back onto the street, the air felt lighter, freer. Dogs barked again, children's laughter returned, and life began to flow back. From that day, Kareem's shop never opened again. The sign of smooth crown cuts hung broken until the wind carried it away. And Uncle Jethro's shop, though small and old, became full again with the sound of clippers and the laughter of boys. Jonah never forgot the night of fire and mirrors. But whenever he passed by the church, he touched his head and smiled. Because he knew, Hollow Street had been saved.